Welcome back everyone to another video on the Vixen Victory channel. Today we're going to be talking about the recent stuff with the special program. As you can see, there's a lot of tabs we have to go through, so I'm not going to do too much of a big intro, so let's go ahead and just jump right in. Looking at the special program, if you guys didn't know, I'm going to try to make this as quick as humanly possible to get you guys through this. The first thing that we saw here is an indwelling mechanic, basically from what we could get from the actual creators, basically, right? So there's an indwelling mechanic that these things called Sorians that you guys can use, and actually these kind of monsters, or kind of quote-unquote monsters, there's three different types that we can jump through right now. Obviously you have the Dendro one, the Hydro one, which can actually also swim in lava as well, in the lava regions, if you can find one as well. And then you saw the original one, I believe the Telepathosaurus or something like that right here as well. So you can jump in there as well. And that'll help you either with, exploration wise, and there's probably going to be things in the overworld that you're going to need to use them with anyways as well. Another one is looking at the new characters. Now we see that we have a new character like Kina, who's a Geo 4-star character who has a bunch of Geo application actually. So she's an extremely good character that I think a lot of people are going to want to keep their eyes on. I know I am, especially because the Geo application is going to be very, very good for me as another character for my Navia actually. So there's a lot of extra usability, and I'm extremely excited to see how people are going to use her. But beyond looking at her, we also actually not only just get, to see her as a new character, but as you actually get through a certain part of the story, you will see here that obtain new free character. So after you finish, I'm going to guess a part of the quest of some sort of the main quest line, you're actually going to be able to get Kina for free. So all the people who are looking to pull on the banners to the Mulan or the Kinich one, whichever one she's going to be personally on, you actually don't have to pull at all. You can save your primos for all the other characters that you really want. Kina's going to be free. So that's a great thing to know, especially for a lot of free-to-play and people who just want to use this as a skip time, especially if you just pulled on the Emily banner. So that's going to be extremely nice. And then obviously besides her, we see a character like Mulan, who we saw a little bit more on the idea of her mobility. Obviously we're seeing the different tribes. I think that's actually why they have the different areas for each of the places. It's just more or less to show you. Obviously you can see the high amount of mobility that she has over the water and how useful that's going to be. There's even different areas in the world where she's going to actually have different areas where she can almost be on like monorails, basically, of phlogiston, or like the type of rock that's in Natlan, and she's able to just like glide along all of it and go with super ease. So basically the Yelan or Wanderer or whatever of Natlan, so it's going to be very, very helpful. But if you notice, each of those characters, even Kinich as well, who I actually just skipped, but he kind of uses basically his own grappling hook. He kind of makes one, and so it'll be a lot easier, kind of like almost a Shan Yun, to get kind of high up, to kind of use that a little bit more. Whereas, once again, I would say Mulan is a little bit more of the kind of Yelan type character where you're just using her for her high speed in like straight areas. And then if you're trying to go up walls and all this stuff, kind of like what Kirara does, it's actually using a character named the Kina at the beginning of the characters that I was talking about. The next thing I want to talk about is what they're going to talk about here is actually talking about the event wishes. And we just talked about the character, so it makes sense to go ahead and jump into Mulan and Kazuha are going to be the first, basically the first phase of the character banners. So as soon as 5.0 drops, we're going to have Mulan and Kazuha. So if you are looking to grab Mulan, honestly, these two characters are probably going to be extremely good together, possibly with the Pyro Archon in the future being another great pull for them, maybe making an amazing team. We've seen that even with characters like, early characters like Linny or characters like Neuvillette and Risley or whatever, at the beginning of Fontaine, and then Farina coming out and making the team extremely, extremely good. So never mind those characters aren't bad by themselves, but think about adding the Archon to the team. It just really does another huge number, so possibly could be great for those Mulan wanters. Also though, Kina, like I said, she is upped on the first phase of this banner, but that does mean that, you do have the free version of her anyways, so possibly if you still are going for the banner, you could go for some more, I guess, extra constellations if you really want for her. Another one is looking at the second phase of the banner. So basically the first half is going to be Mulan and Kazuha, second half is going to be Kinich and Raiden Shogun. The idea here though is this is what's going to be up next afterwards. So if you guys are looking to pull after possibly an R2 Raiden or C2 Raiden, sorry, and an R1, probably getting her weapon for her, for some other character, and obviously Kinich, if you just pulled Emily, is going to be high on your list to get as well, considering it seems like he's going to be worth to go after for burning teams. The next thing we have here though is talking about the Sacred Flames pilgrimage, right? And so the entire idea here is that basically I think This is going to be an online web event. Yep, it says here, obviously the web event's going to be online, and you're going to be able to cheer, and hopefully we can get 30 million people to cheer. And that means everybody in the game, no matter what, is going to get one of the footprint of the rainbow, which is gonna, it just doesn't really talk too much about the ability on the weapon, but I'm gonna guess that these main stats, I'm gonna kind of put my own personal idea in here. It's probably gonna be an HP percent polearm. And that's going to be great for a lot of polearm users actually that go off HP percent. Yao Yao, Chevreuse, some really good characters actually could use another one, considering we just got an event weapon not too long ago actually, the Dialogues weapon, and you know, those two kind of fight for that weapon, so possibly putting this type of weapon could be good for them. Or even, you know, maybe looking at maybe for more Geo characters, maybe a polearm for Geo characters, more shield stuff, maybe something more defense. Either way, that's at 10 million. After 20 million people have gone to this page and done so, which I would highly recommend you go ahead and do, just so that we can get to the maximum amount of cheers for this and getting all the rewards. Also, the Catalyst is at the second phase, which enhances normal attacks for the Catalyst characters, which obviously is going to be very good. Obviously, if there's other characters that are based off of normal attacks, especially Catalyst characters that are going to do that, characters like Wanderer could use this, characters even like Mulan could technically use this as well. It seems like she might use her skills, but also some normal attacks on her Sharky Bite, so I guess we'll kind of see what that usefulness is there for as well. Also, if you did watch the special program and you kind of just watching this video just for extra, actually the Pyro Archon jumped in Mavwika with this weapon, and it significantly increases attack. So as we saw here, with maybe some extra bags of maybe some more level up materials, some just extra stuff for ascensions for the characters, this could be extremely good to just start to have to get those characters up to where they're at. And probably an attack percent weapon, possibly if they're nice to us, maybe even a crit. So very interested to see what we've got out of that. We've also got two new bosses. We've got a Geo type character, which when we are actually running through him, if you see actually, he's going to be able to pick up these little balls or whatever, and then he kind of shoots like lava, like kind of chunks at you. And there's three. But if you can actually, it seems like at least get one of them away from him, as Bennett's going to burn these before he can actually pick them up. He only picked up one and he got two, and I'm going to guess the explosion of them actually stunned him. So it seems like Pyro characters, obviously in the nation of, you know, Natlan, this is going to be very good. Pyro characters are going to do well, possibly against him. So to see, that's very nice. People that have Arlequinos, Dilukes, Hutaos, Yoimiyas, all these other characters, probably going to have Extreme Linny and all these other characters. You're going to have lots of fun going against that as well. There's another boss as well, if we can find him. Here he is. So he's a large Sorian, which are those kind of things that I was talking about at the beginning of the video. And he's going to have the idea of basically just flying around. I'm going to guess constant just attacks. It doesn't look like he's going to be very easy and fun to fight against, in my personal opinion. He's going to be attacking a lot, and it seems like his mobility is going to be annoying to deal with. Thankfully, though, if you have characters like Mulan and whatever that can get out of the way pretty quickly and easily, it seems very nice. But he's almost, once again, like a phoenix and almost changing ways. He's almost like fighting an Arlequino, actually. If you do have fought basically the world boss fight for Arlequino, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Also, we'll go a little bit farther and talk about the reputation system. Now, in the reputation system, I want to bring up with Natlan, the other nations that we've had, it's only one reputation system. So you do a bunch of challenges, you do a bunch of stuff, and you get some really, really cool rewards out of everything that you can get out of it. And that's, you know, that's mainly why people are doing it, all the rewards that you can get. But the thing here, though, is that there's actually, he's going to click on this. As you can see, we're in one of the tribes, the Dendro tribe, similar, right? And there's actually a tribe that, there's 3 different tribes that we can explore right now. And that's the Geo tribe, the Dendro tribe, and the Hydro tribe. Now, I'm not going to go into the different names because I don't remember them. But the idea here, though, is that each of the tribes is going to have a set of bounties, a set of supply notices, quests that you can do in the area, and world exploration, most likely just in their area. Now, this could be the entire world exploration, maybe to make it easier. But either way, if you notice, actually, we're probably going to get probably more rewards. And he's talking about also the Tribal Chronicles at the top. And the Tribal Chronicles is basically, if I can find it, it's the, here we go, there's a mention called the Tribal Chronicles. It's basically doing, now we're in the Hydro tribe, talking about the actual way to do a bunch of different acts of quests, and then you're actually going to get a bunch of primos from this as well. So you're adding on more primos, more rewards, doing more quests, and it kind of gives you a little bit more of an insight as to what's going on with the actual idea of what's going on with each tribe, and kind of gives you a little bit more of a deeper dive with each of the areas, which is kind of cool if you're a little bit more, you kind of want to take a tribe and want to learn more about them. Also, this is basically just an events overview of Thorns and Crowns. It's probably going to be one of our major ones. The biggest one is probably going to be Traces of Artistry. It looks like we get a free weapon here, a 4-star weapon with a bunch of rewards. It's probably going to be our big one for the version, which makes sense. And the Mementos of Tevat is our normal one where we kind of look over the past year. You get to see all your stats and share them with friends and people online. Get to see how many Hilichurls you've slain, or different ideas like that, or how many Primos you've gathered in the past year. Leyline Overflow is probably going to be extremely good with the amount of extra Mora and Hero's Wit you're probably going to have to grind to level up all these new characters. And then obviously we see a bunch of new stuff to get some extra, just obviously really fun stuff with the summer events that we could possibly be getting, and some other things like that are going to be very interesting and fun to look after. And this is all just for 5.0, so they've got a lot going on. Now we're getting into the actual beyond the events and a little bit more onto the quote-unquote events, or the actual kind of good things that we're getting through the anniversary events, as well as a little bit more to just kind of thank us for what's going on. So this is probably the biggest section that everybody's talking about. Here we're talking about the anniversary login event, where normally we get 10 intertwined fates like he's talking about here, and we're getting 1600 primos, one of those sanctifying elixirs, which I'm going to talk about later, 2 fragile resins, very nice. The firstborn fire spirit, which is basically, I believe, something that can just follow you around, kind of like the Oceanid and whatnot. And the Kaboom box as well, which I believe is the same thing. It's just something that can follow you around. But basically, we're getting about 20 pulls here. Pretty normal, right, when you kind of look at things. And it's pretty easy to kind of distinguish, okay, this is normal. We're getting some extra stuff and some sort of sanctifying elixir, which is pretty amazing, actually. And we'll talk about it later. But for right now, that's at least what we're showing at this point in time. Well, then they decide that there's a little bit more. And by a little bit more, I mean a lot of bit more. Let me just make sure. Yep, here we go. Okay, the next part is if you finish 5.0, 5.1, and 5.3 over those 3 different versions, and yes, I did say 5.1 and skip 5.3. That's at least what they stated in here in the translation. It does talk about 5.0, 5.1, and then skips 5.2 for some reason. So there might be a dry patch or something like that. And then we get into 5.3. But as soon as you do 5.0 and you finish the entire quest line, the first 2 acts, you get 500 primos. And then he says that in 5.1, it's going to be 2 more acts, and you're going to get another 500. And then 5.3 probably has the last 2 acts, and you're going to get another 500 primos. So over the course of 3 different versions, you can get basically another 10 pull. So very nice to see, actually, with what we're getting here. Yeah, see, if you look here in the translation, it says in the upcoming versions 5.0, 5.1, and 5.3. So it's 500 apiece for each 3 versions. Obviously, do the math quickly. It's 500 times 3 is 1500. It's almost a 10 pull. Also, the really cool thing that I'm loving about this actually is the test runs. So as you know, with the normal test runs of the characters, if you're trying to just play the character and do it, it's open world actually now. And when you do it, it's going to give you the 60 primos like normal. And normally they just gave us enough to just get through the first ascension. This ascension actually lets us go to level 60, which is amazing to get characters, as you can see here, get her up to 60, which is going to help a lot of new players actually get to that higher level in the game quicker and allow them, as long as they can get there, kind of easier so they don't have to grind as much and get to Natlan or finish more quest lines and whatnot. Basically just help them improve the game experience a little bit better for them. Another thing is the quick start feature as well that we're getting. The idea of the quick start feature is for those people that just finished the Leeway quest, and if you're just kind of jumped into Genshin and you're kind of new and you've only finished, Mondstadt and Leeway and haven't even thought about Inazuma yet, you can go ahead and actually jump right into the Natlan storyline. And then that'll allow you to actually do these quests. Because if you're thinking, well, I can't get the 500 primos from all these new, events and whatever, because I haven't even gotten there yet. Well, what they're doing now is you can quick start as long as you finish the events or the main storyline up to Leeway and finish Leeway's main storyline. You can actually just immediately jump over and quick start into Natlan's as well. So if you're in the middle of an Inazuma one or in the middle of Sumeru or Fontaine and you're a little bit behind and you're scared of not being able to get the extra rewards, don't worry, Genshin's got you as well. Just another way that they've kind of looked ahead at that idea. And I did jump ahead to that one, so we'll skip it. Also, if once again, you've already been taking a little bit of time, it's been a little while since you've been back, the Stellar Reunion event will be coming back as well. And it's actually got a little bit of an upgrade. You're going to get an extra 10 pulls alongside of what you normally get. So it's basically an extra 20 pulls overall. And I believe from a friend what I was talking to, it's basically, I think, 2 weeks. So if you haven't been playing the game for over 2 weeks, possibly a month, something like that, then you'll be able to get 20 pulls just like that. So even if it's only been a little bit of time, go ahead and still jump into Genshin and you should be able to get some pretty good rewards out of it. Another thing that I've been extremely excited about is this actually, which is basically the kind of flowers, all this other stuff that you can kind of get in these materials here. I've been trying to grind the lotuses or whatever for Layla, and I just got to a point, 70 out of 70, that I have way too much on my plate right now. I don't want to take the time, and I know it's lazy, but I don't want to take the time to go look for a little bit of things and find a few things as well. Also, crystal fly hunting is going to be way easier if you can just click on the go to collect. And if you do so, when you actually click the option, it's going to send you right over to different areas and specialties in the area in blue markered where you can go. So no more using up pins on your map to try to find where flowers are and look up YouTube videos and spend almost an hour trying to grab and upgrade a character just because you don't have enough flowers. Once again, the game's optimized a little bit more. We're seeing a lot of quality of life changes that it's just making the game a lot easier to get through, and they've listened, and that's the biggest thing that we're getting here. They're listening and they're making the changes. A lot of that anniversary actual stuff that they've given us, and even more that I'll talk about later, is actually because of last year's kind of whole debacle with them kind of, the community, half the community was in an uproar, half the community was like, there's no need to be in an uproar, and didn't really want to say anything, didn't really care. The idea, though, is that, they felt, some of the community felt a little bit more pressed that they didn't feel like they were getting enough rewards from weekly and, obviously the yearly stuff, from the anniversary. And so they listened, and obviously they work at things. That's how Hoyo does things. They work a year in advance and work with VAs probably even sooner than that, getting all the story written together. And they took all that information from last year and realized how bad that kind of flopped. And as they were getting ready for this upcoming anniversary a year ago, they thought, okay, well, we know what we need to do and fix it in the future. So although people have probably had it a little bit, a burden in their heart and a little bit of anger, there's actually been, I would say, probably a very huge relief on a lot of characters and players' minds about how they're going to feel towards the game. I know a lot of people have jumped away from Genshin to go to Starro and other things just because of rewards, and now that Genshin's kind of changing, this can hopefully possibly bring them back and, maybe ease their minds a little bit. Also, another great thing, holy cow, is Spectres and Kairagi and a few other of the different monsters like Abyss Mages and whatnot. They're finally getting some extra drop rate increases because, oh my goodness, fighting grabbing Handguards was just a pain in the butt, and no one ever likes to do. Ruin Guard stuff wasn't really that bad. Kairagi as well, Handguards. Everybody in Azuma, for some odd reason, wanted to use Handguards, and so there wasn't a lot of them unless you wanted to map them and pin them everywhere, and let's be honest, nobody has time for that. So thankfully they fixed that as well and increased the drop rate of them, giving us more rewards for it. Also, another huge thing actually is talking about the world level 9 in the open world. So if you've already gotten to level 60, you'll be able to do what he's about to do here, but I do want to talk about this. Basically, you can get up to world level 8 right now in the game. If you're going to go higher, the highest thing in the world I think we can see is around the level 90 idea. But if we actually go further, it's more like the Abyss and the Overworld that it's allowing us to do. By going future-wise, we're actually going into world level 9. And if you're already world level 60, you can go ahead and join right onto the Archon quest, as you probably saw there, as he kind of went a little bit fast beyond it. But you can go right to an Ascension quest, which will then immediately jump you into just a domain. Just like old times, if you've been playing forever and you're at AR60, you probably haven't had to do an Ascension quest in a very long time, and so it'll bring us right into a domain. And now things in the overworld are going to be about 10 levels higher. So we're going to see in the overworld level 98 to level 99, possibly level 100 bosses and stuff like that in the future as well if you do this Ascension quest. If you're not prepared for it, it's not locked behind a billion primos. It's 100 primos and some heroes would or something like that. So it's not worth it if you're not ready for it. If you're just sitting with a lot of level 80 characters, which it's fine if you do. That was kind of how Genshin used to be. It was very easy to just sit at level 80 with a lot of the characters. But now I think probably it's going to be a little bit more, not necessary, I don't want to say necessary, but it's going to be a little bit more rewarding to get to level 90 for a lot of possible open world stuff. But even still, a lot of level 80 characters burn through the Abyss as well, so if they're well built, and you don't have to worry about it at all. I would just caution you either way. Also, going beyond this though, we see the level 8 through the level 9, so that's really cool. I'm really hyped for that, so a lot of this stuff has been great. Another thing that we've seen from Starro and other games is the idea of taking some artifacts and salvaging them and doing some other things, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we see this artifact salvage. So you can salvage certain artifacts and just salvage a bunch of them. And it'll basically, if we go back here for a second, he's grabbing all 3-star and all 4-star artifacts. Now, if you're like me, I don't use 3-star and 4-star artifacts. I basically churn and burn them and immediately throw them into 5-star artifacts because that's where I am at the game. And obviously you can see here there's no 5-star artifacts. We're glad they don't do that because misclicks would be a pain in the butt. But as you can see, all of these are now going to be turned into Unction and Essence. So these two things in the bottom here. Unction, I believe, is on the right, Essence is on the left, which allows you still to level into artifacts. So, but it's actually almost a little bit better in my personal opinion. I like to use it. It takes up more inventory space. There's a lot, that's kind of a bigger reason as well. So there's a lot of things that you can do that's going to help a lot with. I think that's going to be great. You know, if you have some different like HP and defense, affixes, he really doesn't want to keep them. He wants to get rid of them. Going beyond this, though, let's talk about the Sanctifying Elixir. Now, this was something that you're going to get in the Battle Pass, something you can find in the open world, by the way, which there's probably going to be people in YouTube just as soon as basically Natlan goes live. Somebody's going to have somehow all of the Sanctifying Elixirs in the world already. But basically, these things are given pretty, I would say, about once a version as well as in the open world and probably possibly around some events that we saw. And I think as well the anniversary event as well. You can create a Sanctifying Elixir. Now, while doing so, also you can see here, it's also a part of the in battle section. So if you've already finished it, you're probably going to be fine to do this again. Sanctifying Elixir then can be turned and grab any set and then choose its main stat. And you can choose a flower, a feather, a sands, a goblet, a circlet, and you see how many you have up here. You can get the main stat, choose the main stat, and choose 2 substats. So let's say you're like, you know what, I just got Mulan, and I want to go on the Obsidian Codex, and this is kind of the idea that I want to go for. Okay, well, I need a Hydro damage bonus main stat, and I just, for some odd reason, I can't get a Hydro, I don't have a good Hydro damage bonus main stat on my account at all, and I've got an offset circlet, and I want to keep the 4-piece, so I'm going to do a flower, a feather, a sands, and a goblet, and I have some really good circlets, or I have some really good flowers offset, and I've got all the other, I've got like a really good feather, a really good sands, and a really good circlet on this set, but I need one more. You can go and grab a goblet, throw on Hydro damage bonus, and then we'll give him a second, turn on crit rate and crit damage, so you can immediately get a double crit, and it gives you a 5-star artifact with double crit, Hydro damage bonus main stat. Now, I don't know about you guys, that is absolutely amazing. It's going to help a lot of people who are grinding characters consistently, and we see this in other games that Hoyo's already created. If you play Star Rail, then you've seen that as well. We're finally getting that, so that's just very nice to see. I was just kind of going over that for the people who don't play Star Rail and kind of only play Genshin and don't really know what that would mean. Another great thing is the Battle Pass. I don't know about you guys, but I have, actually Rift made fun of me, and one of my friends made fun of me a while ago. I have like over 100 books of something, purely because of the Battle Pass. I don't use that stuff anymore, and I don't need any more of it. All the Mondstadt, all the Inazuma, there's a lot of regions that I don't need to level anymore because I've already leveled the characters that I can with those books, and there's no one else. So now these, books are just stockpiling, and the more Battle Passes come out, the more uselessness I'm growing. But actually, if you see here, if you need more Mora, Hero's Wit, it's basically the lower version of Hero's Wit, weapon enhancement stuff, and Sanctifying Unction, you can choose 3 out of 4 of them to go ahead and grab, which is absolutely amazing to see. Now, the thing I was just talking about here, though, is what we can get here in these boxes, because this is where we kind of get our talent books from the different areas. You can choose now any of them that you want, and just choose and claim. So it doesn't matter what region it's from, past, present, it doesn't matter. You're going to be able to grab any of those and then immediately use them as well and claim them. So if you're especially grabbing some new characters and you only want to get consistently, I'm grinding one character, and in the entire battle pass, you want to just constantly get more of those talent books, you can go ahead and do that. So extremely nice quality of life thing, by the way, and they didn't even have to do that. That was just really nice of them to do. Another thing is the Overworld stuff. I'm not too much of an Overworld fan, but I love the idea of Natlan, and I really liked Fontaine, so I'm actually kind of getting back into exploring and kind of having fun with exploration. So looking at exploration, he already did the math for us, but there's going to be more rewards in a lot of different areas for you, and he already did the math for us. There's going to be more than 10 intertwined fates, which is 1600 primos, more than normal in exploration. So if you explore all of Natlan, if let's say there was 80 primo gems to get in Natlan, now they've upped it to the point where it's actually 90. So basically they just gave us more primos for exploration overall, which once again, very nice for free-to-play players, a lot very nice for characters and players who are looking for just constantly, trying to get more primos, especially if they like exploration as well. The other thing is, there's a few changes we've got in the banners as well. Now you can see here, this is the first banner actually, so we've already gotten some 4 stars actually shown, and the first 4 stars we see here is Bennett, Kachina, and Xinyan. Now the idea with this though, I don't even want to talk about the 4 stars, no offense, as well as they are some cool looking characters. He's going to get a little thing here that you might notice is a little weird. Now they changed the effect on the 5-star here actually, so you can see almost right there an intertwined fate kind of sparkle and show. Now that special effect actually does trigger something, I believe. I believe it's different than normal. There's a new effect that's called the capturing Radiance. So normally when you go for a character and you let's say you've never wished before in the game, ever. You have zero everything, right? If you put 90 wishes in, you're guaranteed to get a 5-star character. That 5-star character can either be, it's a 50-50, so a coin flip of either the character that's on the banner, and in this instance Mulan, or it could be 50, the other 50 would be any of the standard characters in a pool. If you can get the capturing Radiance, which there's a chance that it encounters you or it even comes up, it gives you another 5% chance, so it makes it a 55-45 instead of a 50-50, which slightly tips the odds in your favor to obviously win those 50-50s. Now, it's not extremely goated, but it helps just a little bit more, especially for the people that kind of are always losing those 50-50s and are always losing to never getting the character. It's just a little bit more helpful. Now, also people talked to him and asked him a question of, okay, well, what about if I already have a guarantee? If I just got catching, let's say I got a 50-50, okay, I just got a 5-star and I got catching instead of Mulan. Well, if you actually look forward a little bit, you can see that he talks about if you already have a guarantee, this capturing Radiance won't pop up, which is good because you don't want that to happen because you're already guaranteed the next time to get the 5-star character on banner. The next thing that we see here on the weapon banner, actually on the banner itself, I guess, is the weapon banner. Now, if you've noticed, it's not 2 fate points anymore, it's 1 fate point. And fate points are extremely big because this went from making weapons, basically trying to get, let's say, Mulan's weapon, from 240 wishes, because you could get 2 other weapons before guaranteeing her personal weapon, which means 80 to get the weapon times 3. Because 2 and then to actually get her weapon would be 3. So 240, which is more than a character, which is a guarantee at 180. So now they've brought it down to 1, which means you go to 80, let's say you get Freedom Sworn. Okay, well now you're guaranteed the next 5 stars to be Surf's Up. So now it's 80 plus 80, which is 160, which is less than 180, which is to get a character, which makes sense. Getting the weapon should be a little bit easier than getting the character. Next is probably one of the biggest things that people were kind of roaring about for the longest time since last year was getting a free 5-star character. Star Rail's done it. I believe even Withering's going to do it soon. So there have been plenty of games that have already just giving out free characters that aren't necessarily amazing, but it's still kind of like, here you go. So actually, if you look here, we're actually every year, now this is every Genshin Impact anniversary version. So every year that we're going to get this anniversary, we're going to get a free 5-star character selector. So we can choose any of these standard characters on this here. Now, in the future, they could even be throwing more standard characters on this. So even next year, let's say they throw in Albedo or they throw in a Sumeru character. You know, we could possibly be seeing more than just these few characters here because Tainari and Dia were actually added recently, quote unquote recently as well. So that's just something that's food for thought for people who are kind of looking forward to actually getting a free 5-star character, whether or not you have all these other characters and you don't have one and you really want that one, or if you really just, let's say, like, I don't know, D-Luke and you have him at C5. Well, if you want to get him to C6, there you go. It's just some extra constellations to either help the characters out or to, I don't know, get a new character that you really want to use. For instance, Jean's really good for Farina and Neuvillette teams. Tainari is really good for Quicken teams. Catching's the same way except for Aggravate. Dia's really good right now, especially with Pyro coming up. There could be some buffs that she's getting. Some other of these characters you could actually really get, and they're actually going to be extremely useful for you. So this is extremely nice to see that Genshin is going ahead and giving us. The next thing we want to talk about is the Imaginarium Theater. Now with the Imaginarium Theater, basically these boons that you can get actually are going to be changed as well, because the boons didn't really seem to be that useful, at least for me personally as well. As soon as I got a boon, or like an option to get a boon, I'd rather just choose a character. There was really no need for me to go ahead and grab anything else, in my personal opinion. I would just, either do most likely just grab a companion and then jump over to something else. But they've actually changed the boons where they're actually more useful now. You can get some Vaporize where it helps at Divergence. So basically, after triggering Vaporize on an opponent, unleash a Tidal Shock that deals a bunch of Hydro damage. That could be extremely helpful for you. Or the Fledging Flame. I'm going to guess the same thing. It's just going to deal a Blazing Explosion of Pyro damage instead. So either way, it's going to be some extra damage for you. It's going to actually be worth it to probably go after boons possibly in the future, making the Imaginarium Theater just a little bit better. And another thing, and the last thing we're going to talk about, is the Imaginarium Theater's new difficulty, Visionary difficulty. Before we had 3 versions, the easy mode, normal mode, and hard mode. But now, if you look at the bottom left here, he's going to click on Visionary difficulty, which brings it up a little bit higher. But if you can do it, it's going to be extremely nice and rewarding as well. There's some extra rewards, actually, that he talks about here. If you look at the Performance Tour rewards, the 1 through 8 is where we're at normally. Well, 9 and 10 is where you can jump up and get more rewards. And it's another 180 wishes, I believe, which is very nice to see. And it's an extra 180 primos to do something a little bit more challenging, can help people who are kind of looking for something more challenging. It makes it a little bit more fun to go after. And there's a good reward at the end as well. Well, that's everything I've got talking about this special program. If you guys did enjoy the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys were extremely excited about. I know there was a lot I was very happy with, especially at the end when they went ahead and they did some VA stuff. But honestly, going ahead and before all this, talking to the kind of creators or the devs themselves, at some point they were just kind of giving us a heart-to-heart, and that was just to say, we're sorry, we've messed up, we realized our mistakes and we're trying to do it better. And we kind of felt bad that a lot of people almost hated us and kind of like had like a huge anger towards them because they just felt like they were just taking the game in the wrong direction. And at the end of the day, they were like, look, we're sorry, we've done all this and whatever. We're gonna do our best to look ahead in the future and do right, and try to follow a similar way of what we've been doing. We want to make the best experience. And I do think what he said was actually really good. It's that we as together, we and the devs need to be on the same team and go ahead forward in that direction. So if we can support them, they'll support us, and I think that's going to be great. So honestly, an amazing version. It was over 2 hours long, actually, if you can see here. And me and Rift actually watched the entire thing. So if you want to go ahead and check out Gacha Interact as well, this is our personal, I guess, a separate channel that we kind of go over and talk about a lot of different things. But we did go over the entire version and watch party if you want to go ahead and watch that as well and skip through it if you want to see a little bit more. Well, once again, that's everything we've got in this video. Thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.